Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And in today's episode, we got to give Nick Castellanos some love after his great performance in the Phillies win over the Braves last night and why he's been one of the team MVPs again this year. All of that in today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for joining us. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. You may know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space as an ambulance or fire truck goes by. 5 years I've been talking sports on the radio over at 97.5 The Fanatic here in Philadelphia. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 3 years, and I've been host of Locked On Phillies for 3 years. I do want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB, and you can use code, it's all in lowercase, Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Go ahead and check out our friends over at Prize Picks. The Phillies, great win yesterday. We're going to jump into that in just a second. There's one thing I do want to take some time to do at the top of this episode before we get into any of that. Today, we got some really, really tough news in the sports world and the Philadelphia area type of world, as we found out that last night Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew, riding bikes, were struck by a vehicle and were both killed. They were amazing sports figures in the Philadelphia area, the New Jersey area, where I grew up. I grew up with a bunch of people who knew Johnny and Maddie. And I know this is a Phillies baseball show, so it's not exactly hockey stuff, but if you're from the Philadelphia area and you're a sports fan, chances are you liked hockey or you knew someone who liked hockey. And if you're around my age or if you have kids around my age, I mean, they were like the Gaudreau family is such big figures in the Philadelphia sports scene and just a heartbreaking moment. So thoughts go out to hockey fans everywhere, Flyers fans. I know Gaudreau and like Maddie and Johnny. They played like youth stuff with the Flyers, and it's just a terrible moment. So thoughts to our friends over Locked On NHL, Locked On Blue Jackets, where he was currently playing. Just a terrible day. So I just want to take a minute and give my thoughts and prayers to their family and a lot of people in South Jersey who I know who knew them. All right. Let's get into the Philadelphia Phillies game from last night. It was an awesome win over the Braves by the Philadelphia Phillies. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this little graphic up to the right that I have where it tells you what we're getting into today. And it's called, this first segment I put is Nick Castellanos Appreciation Time, because he hit a big time go-ahead home run in order to put the Philadelphia Phillies up 5-4, which ended up being the final score. I mean, the bullpen deserves love too. And we're going to start with everything that's not Nick Castellanos, but we're going to get into what Casty has been doing lately. He's been, oh my goodness, how good has he been over the past 2 months for this team? Like, as they're coming out of this stretch, he was the guy that really steadied the ship for the Philadelphia Phillies at the plate, which is crazy to say because at the start of the year, there were a lot of people who wanted him not to be on the team anymore, not to play. Somebody else in right field, please, for the love of God, stop playing Nick Castellanos. We saw those comments. Everybody did. You might have made them. And at some points, they might have been valid. But how good does it look now to have him in this lineup? And how big was that swing last night in the seventh inning, hitting that 2-run home run to put the Philadelphia Phillies up 5-4? Now, some other things to talk about. Christopher Sanchez, okay start. 2 earned runs, 4 total runs, but 5 2/3, 2 earned runs, 8 Ks. Not bad. Not a bad start at all. You'll take that against Atlanta. He kind of did his job, even though the Phillies offense was quiet against Charlie Morton early. Ryan Kirkering was awesome in 1 1/3 relief. No hits, no run, like perfect. 2 Ks, awesome. Matt Strahm, 2 Ks in 1 inning of work. Jeff Hoffman, 1 strikeout, perfect ninth. The Philadelphia Phillies bullpen in 3 1/3 innings pitched, just locked down. Lock down. That is how you win ball games, folks. That's how you win playoff caliber ball games. That's how you take down a team like the Atlanta Braves in your division rival. Like, you need the bullpen to be great. Even if you get great starting pitching, you're going to have 2, maybe 3 high leverage innings in all of these games in October and these games in this series if you're going to win. And excuse me, still fighting off that cough. The Philadelphia Phillies got that last night. That just an exceptional job on the mound from everybody who touched it on the Philadelphia Phillies side. And another guy that needs credit offensively, Brandon Marsh, 2 for 4 last night with a 3-run home run in the 6th inning. At that point, it was 4-0. The Phillies have given up 2 moonshot home runs to Matt Olson, and they had given up runs like a double by Orlando Arcia was another way to do it. Like, they were not blowing the covers off the Phillies, but they were up 4-0. The Phillies couldn't hit anything. They felt very much in control of the game. And then Brandon Marsh hits a 3-run home run, which he deserves as much love too. Big home run opposite way a couple days ago in that series against Houston. And now a big one to jumpstart the Phillies offense against the Braves. Now, he hasn't been as consistent, but that's why I continue to advocate for these guys, for Brandon Marsh, for Nick Castellanos, because they might not be perfect baseball players. In Brandon Marsh's case, he might not even be a league average major league hitter. He might not. He could be. I like to believe that at his best, he's better than league average, but recently he has been well below league average. So I'm not saying they're perfect ball players, but I'm saying that with the options you currently have on this team, their ceilings are high enough when they're going good that you have to keep giving them opportunities. You saw it in back-to-back innings last night. So you score 3 in the 6th, 2 in the 7th on the Castellanos home run. You lock everything down. You win 5-4. Easy breezy, beautiful. Cover girl. 7 hits for both teams in this game too. So it's not like you created all this opportunity offensively. Hopefully tonight is a little bit different. And coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about tonight's game in our second segment of the show. But let's get into this Castellanos thing a little bit deeper, because I promised that we would. I mean, yeah, he was just. Here's the thing with Nick Castellanos. When you look back on, I think this is the perfect way to break down Nick Castellanos' time as a Philadelphia Philly. Has he played up to the contract that you signed him to back before the 2022 season? And I think for a lot of people, the answer would be no. And I don't think that's completely unfair. You go out and you give him $100 million deal, and you say, okay, you were an all-star last year in Cincinnati before you came here. We're expecting all-star level production. And he has been giving you all-star level production for essentially 2 halves of 2 seasons, right? Or like 1/2 of 2 seasons. Last year, the start of the season. This year, this half of the season, there's still a month to go. And outside of that, he's been kind of slumpy, kind of streaky. And that's not living up quite to the contract, right? So I kind of understand where people are coming from. But here's the real question, right? It's not have you played up to the contract. If you were to go back to 2022 and you got a phone call to Dave Dombrowski the day before he signs Nick Castellanos, are you calling him, telling him not to do that deal? Are you calling him saying, nah, man, don't get Nick Castellanos in here? I don't think you are. I do not think that you're taking the chance of saying, nah, don't do that. We'll figure it out with other guys. We'll sign somebody else. We'll trade for somebody else. Like, I don't know. Nick Castellanos was a pretty good available player, and the Philadelphia Phillies, I think, made the right decision to sign him because he's been helpful for this team. He's been really big in stretches where the Philadelphia Phillies needed a hero, right? He's not the greatest player on the team. He's not the most consistent player on the team. But funny enough, when the Phillies need somebody, Nick Castellanos has found himself in the middle of it. Last year, start of the season, you're coming off the World Series appearance. Everybody's slumping, except Nick Castellanos keeping the team afloat through the first couple months of the season until they catch fire in June. This year, the team going through one of the biggest slumps we've ever seen a great team go through. Just like 2 months of unbelievably bad play from where they were at earlier on in the season. Who's there? Nick Castellanos finding a way to bat like 290 in the month of August. Like, it's been amazing what he's done recently to keep this team afloat. And it's very uncharacteristic of what he was earlier on in the season. Like, he's just found something for now. And will it fade? Possibly. Will it carry into October? Well, last year would show you that he has the opportunity to be really, really clutch. He had like Reggie Jackson type of stats that he was putting up in that series against the Braves, into that series against the Diamondbacks. Then everybody went cold. But bottom line is, like, he's done great things in October for this team. You remember like a game-saving catch in the World Series game one out in Houston last year, 2 years ago. He's done a lot for this team. And people don't give Nick Castellanos enough love. I'm not saying build the statue, put him on the Wall of Fame. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Don't take this as overstating it, but he's a much maligned figure in Philadelphia sports at points. And he's a guy that has done really great things for this baseball team in his time here. Not the whole time here, but in his time here, he has been very, very helpful at points. And overall, that's a contract that I think you would do, even if he hasn't quite lived up to the dollar amount. When you look at it that way, that's a contract I think you go back and do 10 times out of 10. He's an important player on this team. He was important last night. He deserves the respect of the Philadelphia Phillies fan base. Coming up next, we're going to preview Game 2 against the Braves as the Phils found a way to extend their division lead to 6 games with the win last night. What did the Phillies have to do to find their way to a win in tonight's contest? We'll get into it coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. But let's talk about Liquid IV first. Liquid IV is absolutely clutch in the summer. It's hot out. Hot out. And you know what? You're going to find yourself going to the beach. You're going to find yourself maybe exercising outside. Maybe a little bit of day drinking that turns into night drinking. That turns into tomorrow's hangover. Or maybe you're sitting around and taking in America's pastime. Well, whatever it is, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor. It's a surefire summer hit. I've tried a couple of them. They're awesome. They work. I've known this for years that they work. I love Liquid IV. Very, very helpful. But how do they work? Well, it's powered by LIV Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. What you do is you take the little packet, you just rip it open, you put it in a glass of water, a bottle of water, you shake it up, you stir it up. Next thing you know, you get ultimate hydration, basically. It tastes good, works really quickly. It's awesome. And we're even going to get you 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. That's promo code MLB at liquidiv.com to get your superior hydration. All right, let's preview Game 2 of the series between the Philadelphia Phillies and the Atlanta Braves. I mean, this is such a big series. We talked about it. I told you everything you need to be looking forward to in the Braves series. Now, I know no episode yesterday. I had a double at the station, a lot of stuff going on over there. I'm not going to get into it, but radio has been very, very busy this week. So I appreciate you bearing with me. We'll have another episode tomorrow recapping tonight's game against the Braves. I'm looking forward to the rest of the series. But huge series against the Braves, considering where the Phillies were at coming into this series up 5 games in the division. I guess I'm so used to the Phillies not being in the lead for the division title. The Braves down 5 games and now down 6 games after last night's win by the Phillies. Excuse me. And tonight, the Phillies send Ranger Suarez to the mound again. His last time out was against the Kansas City Royals. It was his first start back returning from the injured list, and he looked great. Great. Now, he didn't go deep into the game, and that's natural. You didn't expect him really to go deep into the game his first time back out. And I don't know how much they're looking at as far as a pitch count for Ranger Suarez. I'd imagine they're going to want to keep him around 85, maybe 90 pitches. Here's something I will say. This is going to be a tough conversation for people, right? But this is the right way to handle it. And I don't want to hear any griping and moaning and all of that on social media tonight. if this does indeed happen. Ranger Suarez is incredibly important to this baseball team's ability to win in October. Incredibly important. And the Phillies are going to be very protective of his health for the next month to make sure that in October he is available to pitch. That is the most important thing. And when I say most important, that means more than anything else, including tonight's game against the Atlanta Braves. Now, people might be losing their minds, saying, you don't care if they win tonight against Atlanta. Of course I care. Like, come on, listen to what I say. Of course I care about the win against the Atlanta Braves tonight. And the Philadelphia Phillies do too. This is one of, if not the biggest series of the year when it comes to the divisional race and possibly even the whole postseason race for the Philadelphia Phillies in the National League. They do have a big one coming up in September with the Milwaukee Brewers, but this series is huge. But if you get to a point where you're like, I don't feel comfortable pushing Ranger Suarez through this inning or out there for another inning. We could really use him. He's in a big spot. I would really like to let him go to further our chances of winning this game against the Braves. But if your thought process is win one regular season game against the Braves, postseason Ranger Suarez, those are your two options. You're taking postseason Ranger Suarez and the ability to have him on this roster all the time. It's not that simple, but that's the thought process, right? So the Phillies are going to be very protective of Suarez tonight. That could mean a short night. Don't be upset about it. Try not to be, because that's the smart, safe approach. Now, what could happen is he could go out and just like against the Royals, he could give you 5 innings of work, or maybe tonight he gives you 6 innings of very clean work on the mound. Looks really, really good. You get 3 innings of bullpen work like you did last night in the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and hey, we're cool. You win another ball game. Like, I'm not saying that situation is going to be majorly controversial, but I can see it being something scrutinized by the fan base. I'm telling you right now, him being healthy is more important than even, this game tonight, even though it is a huge game, one of the biggest regular season games this team is going to play among all 162. Hopefully we don't get to that front. Just my thoughts. Reynaldo Lopez is on the mound, and he shut the Phillies down last time that he faced this team. But it was only 10 days ago. It wasn't exactly that long of a time. So do the Phillies remember what he did? He struck out 10, so I imagine they remember. But he had the strikeout working. He has great numbers. He's got a 2.02 ERA. He's also another righty. I believe he is like the 5th righty in a row this team has faced as far as starting pitchers are concerned. So that get the Phillies in the groove a little bit, get used to seeing right-handed pitchers on the mound. Maybe that has something to do with something. I do think that when you get a long string of the same-sided pitchers, you can get the same guys in the lineup, which keeps it consistent, which keeps everybody hot, which leads to better offensive performance. I do think that's the case. When you see a pitcher multiple times in a short stint, like they're seeing with Reynaldo Lopez, I'm looking at a situation where maybe this is a spot where the Philadelphia Phillies have a nice night offensively against a good pitcher. Now, I don't think they're putting up 10 on him. And I also think that, like, relatively, it's a nice night relative to what they did last time where they were completely shut down. So I just don't think that's going to happen again. But he's a very good pitcher. You got to respect Reynaldo Lopez and what he was able to do against the Phillies last time out. So I don't know. To me, the bigger question is not the offense in this game. Is Ranger Suarez going to have one of those, like when you see guys bounce back from injury, maybe that first start you get back out there and you're like, I feel good, man. It's good to be back out here. A little adrenaline, little focus. And you say, I got a great start in me today. And then there's a little bit, it's rarely just like a straight, like, climb up a mountain. It's normally like a stock return, like, right? Maybe up a little bit, down a little bit, up a little bit, down a little bit. That's kind of what it is when guys come back from injury on the mound. So maybe Ranger Suarez has a good start, maybe not. Toss up tonight. The offense is going to have to produce a little bit. I'd say that probably about the mark you're looking at last night. 5 runs win this ball game. The Phillies lineup is indeed out because I'm recording the episode a little bit later today. But Schwarber's leading off. Turner, Harper, Castellanos batting cleanup. Bryson Stott, JT Realmuto, Brandon Marsh, Edmundo Sosa, and Johan Rojas. The lineup. Alec Boehm left yesterday's game with some hand discomfort. X-rays were negative. It shouldn't be too long of a missed time for Alec Boehm, but he's not in the lineup today. So you're going to be looking at Edmundo Sosa playing at third base, which that sucks, but Bowman been in a bit of a slump right now. You're looking at a situation where he's going to miss a couple games. Maybe just today, maybe just because Rob Thompson says he's sore right now. So I don't know exactly what the outlook for Alec Boehm is, but you could find a way to still win tonight's ball game. So, hey, can the Phils make it 2 in a row? Can they put themselves in position for a series win in the first 3 games and maybe even go for a sweep? Well, that's getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. But don't lose all the momentum of last night. Go out, find a way to take tonight's game from the Braves, not at the expense of Ranger Suarez's health. Coming up next, we're going to talk about some news that came out yesterday ahead of the game that I haven't had a chance to get into yet. The Phillies made a decision on Taijuan Walker. I don't know how I feel about it. Kind of understand it, kind of still annoyed. We'll discuss as we wrap up today's episode. Let's talk about Prize Picks, though, because Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. They've got over 5 million active members, and they're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you got to do, right? You don't play other players or anything like that. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. You can watch the winnings roll in if you get them right. Get in on the daily action with your friends. You can become part of the Prize Picks community, see what other people are picking. And they've got a great way for you to win money doing this. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 in a snap. It takes 60 seconds to put together a lineup. You could just go to the Phillies, Braves tonight. Matt Olson hit 2 homers last night. You see him going yard again tonight? Hey, maybe a 2-hit game for guys like Nick Castellanos, who's red hot. Brandon Marsh, who's starting to heat up a little bit. You just put 4 together, maybe Ranger Suarez, you say, he's going to strike out a bunch of Braves hitters. Hey, there you go. You've got 4 stats that you like the more than option on. You put it all together on Prize Picks. You get them right. You win. It's that simple. It's a great way to make your watching experience of sports that much more interesting. And you download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB. You can get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So check out Prize Picks. Run your game with Prize Picks. All right, I do want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Please make sure your next listen is Locked On MLB. Locked On MLB, hosted by Sully, Paul Francis Sullivan. It covers baseball in general, that podcast, and there are a lot of great storylines going on right now that interest Phillies fans because of the postseason race. So check it out after this, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's Locked On MLB. That should be your next listen after Locked On Phillies. Now, the Phillies made a decision on the Taijuan Walker situation. Yesterday, Rob Thompson decided, probably after a conversation with Sam Fold, the GM, Dave Dombrowski, the president of baseball operations, Caleb Cotham, the pitching coach, probably a bunch of people in this conversation. Taijuan Walker is moving to the bullpen to be a long relief man for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, here's where it's good. It's a very simple part of this that is good. Taijuan Walker is not making his next start for the Philadelphia Phillies. He shouldn't. He's been terrible, just absolutely awful recently. His start against the Astros, flat out miserable, 13 hits in 6 innings, no strikeouts in 13 hits in 6 innings and 6 runs given up is just one of the worst starts we've ever seen in our lifetime, even if you're 70 years old. So it's a right move from that standpoint. Taijuan Walker could not make his next start. There's no way it would be negligent in a divisional race, a race for the 1 seed in the National League, a team that's competitive for the postseason. You're wasting your time putting him out there. Now, if it were up to me, I would absolutely just wipe my hands of Taijuan Walker, say, hey, I know you got 2 more years on your deal. We'll eat it. We'll pay you the money. Get out of here. That's what I would have done if it was me. But I'm not John Middleton. I don't have $36 million invested in this player, and it's committed to the investment. What are you going to do? You just give $36 million to the wind? He's not going to pitch for you. That's a tougher call there, right? It's easy for a fan to say, get rid of Taijuan Walker. You have to think about the money involved. So would I eat $36 million? Now, I think there's a strong argument as to why you would. I don't know that he'll give you anything. But for the rest of the season, I don't think the decision has to be made, right? They could make it next preseason, football in my mind, next spring training as he competes for a spot on the MLB roster. Maybe he figures something out in the bullpen down the stretch this year. Like, not to the point where you're like, oh, wow, he's solved in like a month, but give him a chance to reset this offseason, to decide what exactly he wants to do, work on some stuff with his game. It's possible. Guys have had resurgences in their career all the time. So I'm not saying believe in Taijuan Walker, but I'm not saying he will never, ever pitch another good inning of baseball again in his life. I think that's too much of a statement to make. He won't pitch another good one this year, though, I don't think. And when you put him in as a long relief man, okay, those spots have got to be mop-up roles. They've got to be like the no-name guys from the minor leagues roles, where you're down 7, you don't want to put a position player in, it's Taijuan Walker. When you're up 8, like, I got to eat this inning, very, very low leverage, it's Taijuan Walker. Rob Thompson said they're going to start like 1 inning at a time and kind of work his way up to being a long relief guy. Maybe you get something out of him. Like, my goal for Taijuan Walker is you may have to like start him again if you get a big enough lead in the division to eat innings just to keep guys fresh. And that's the play. But he can't even really like eat innings anymore. He can't do anything on the mound right now that is worth putting him in the starting rotation, or really worth putting him in a ball game that's anywhere close on the scoreboard. So I guess I kind of get it. You're going to try and recoup your $36 million investment in Taijuan Walker 1 inning at a time going forward the rest of this year. And do I see it working out? Probably not. I don't have any faith in what he can bring. I don't know when the next time we'll actually see him on the mound is, because you have to have a pretty comfortable spot to say the game is already in hand or the game is already lost to put Taijuan Walker in the ball game. But they're going to try. So I get it. I do. I would have liked to just move on from this whole thing, but I get why that's not a decision they want to make right now at this point in the season. They're just putting him in a very, very minimal spot. He's going to be like the last man in the bullpen, and we'll see what happens next time that he goes out and throws. I also think his next appearance should be on the road, because I think he will be booed heartily by Philadelphia Phillies fans the second he gets called into the game from the bullpen for the first time. And that's just, that's reality. He has not pitched well. That's this fan base. That's this town. You don't produce, we're going to boo you. That's what he's going to get. So maybe on the road, he'll be in a spot where he feels a little bit more welcome, which I don't know, man. I don't know what you'd even do with Taijuan Walker, but I know what they're doing. They're putting him in the bullpen as a long relief man. So there you have it. The one other thing too, like, let's say, for example, Taijuan Walker goes out and he makes, 7 or 8 appearances over the rest of the year. And they range from like 1 inning to 2 innings. And they're kind of like mop-up type of roles, but his ERA is really low as a reliever, and his stuff looks good and everything. And he's like, we're like, okay, they might have made a great move. Taijuan Walker might actually be something out of the bullpen. I don't care if he looks like Mariano Rivera out of the pen. He's not touching the ball in the postseason. Do not do it. That's the one thing I want to think about as they make this move. He doesn't touch the ball in the postseason, because I swear, if there's a point in this postseason with this Phillies team where there is a series that you need a reliever to come into, and part of the Philadelphia Phillies season hinges on Taijuan Walker throwing a baseball again, I will lose my damn mind. I cannot possibly imagine what would happen if you put him in a spot in a postseason game, even where it's like a 4-run difference. No way. Even if it's a 7-run difference, no way. Not in the postseason. I don't care what he looks like out of the bullpen. He is not on the postseason roster this year for me. I'm not even giving him a chance to throw in a spot where this team's season is on the line. So I do wish Walker the best of luck. The Phillies' easiest path, like it is with all of their players, their easiest path to being good is if he's good. I just don't have a lot of faith in him right now. Neither do the Phillies. They make that move. But I have a lot of faith in the team and how they're playing. Another good win against the Braves last night. Hopefully we're seeing one tonight against the Atlanta Braves with Ranger on the mound against Reynaldo Lopez. So I'm going to go get ready for that game. Fingers crossed. We got a big weekend ahead of us as they continue to play Atlanta, so we'll keep an eye on it. Now, I want to thank you one more time for checking out Locked On Phillies, making us your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff. That really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. And I will talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.